Jung's transcendent function is one of the most misunderstood ideas in all of depth psychology. Most people assume it's something you activate through effort. More shadow work, more journaling, more inner investigation. They're wrong. The transcendent function doesn't activate when you add something to yourself. It activates when you finally stop adding. You'll discover the 4 patterns that keep people circling the Sophia threshold without crossing it, while the very tools that brought you this far are now the walls keeping you from going further. And what the transition actually feels like when you finally stop climbing and start descending into what was already there. Before we dive in, if this kind of content resonates with you, come find me at luminaryflow.com. There's a free gift waiting for you. You'll find the link in the top comment below. Now let's get back into it. Imagine someone who has done everything right. They mapped their shadow. They've traced their projections back to the source. They've stopped blaming other people for what they can't face in themselves. By every measure of inner work, they have succeeded. And yet, there is no sense of arrival. They still feel like they're waiting, still taking stock, still reading the next book, watching the next video, taking the next course, hoping that one more insight will finally tip the scales. Consider what's actually happening. They're not failing because they haven't done enough. They're stuck because they made the work itself into the destination. The seeker identity is comfortable. It has structure. It has purpose. It gives you a reason to wake up tomorrow and continue becoming. And that is precisely the cage. In my previous take on the Sophia stage, I described what it looks like when you finally arrive at direct knowing, when truth stops being something you borrow and becomes something you own. This time it's about the space before that arrival, the threshold many people never cross, not because they lack discipline or depth, but because the very process that carried them to the edge now refuses to let them step over it. The first pattern is the most common. Jung called the second and third stages Helen and Mary. At Helen, you project wisdom into a person. At Mary, you project it onto a tradition or system. Most people who are serious about inner work move through Helen quickly enough. They stop idolizing individual teachers. But Mary is where they stall. Picture someone who has read every Jung volume, who attends workshops, follows analysis online, discusses archetypes with fluency. They are genuinely knowledgeable, and they are genuinely stuck, because knowledge at the Mary stage functions as a sophisticated form of borrowed certainty. The system replaces the teacher, but the dependency is identical. You still look outside yourself for confirmation. You still need someone else's framework to trust what you already feel. The lived experience of this trap feels like being permanently on the verge. You're always about to break through. The next book will clarify it. The next insight will unlock it. But the breakthrough never comes because the breakthrough isn't an insight. It is a surrender of the need for insight to lead you somewhere. The second trap is more subtle because it disguises itself as progress. This is the person who has done genuine shadow work. They faced their projections. They reclaimed what they disowned. And then they made that process into who they are. Consider how this feels from the inside. You notice a projection. You pull it back. You feel the relief of ownership. And then you go looking for the next one. Not because anything needs fixing, but because the habit of fixing has become who you are. The shadow was never meant to be a permanent residence. It is a threshold, but the ego took the tools of integration and converted them into a maintenance program. An endless loop of self-excavation that produces insight after insight without ever producing stillness. Modern psychology quietly reinforces this. The whole therapy culture treats the psyche as something to be continuously fixed, adjusted and optimized. But Jung was explicit. The goal of individuation is not endless self-improvement. It is wholeness. And wholeness does not require you to fix every crack. It requires you to stop treating yourself as a project that needs completing. This isn't spiritual bypassing. It's the opposite. It's recognizing that the obsession with healing can itself become the most sophisticated form of avoidance. Because as long as you're working on yourself, you never have to simply be yourself. The third trap targets people who are genuinely perceptive. These are the ones who see patterns clearly. They can read people. They can name the hidden dynamic in any relationship. They understand the archetype behind the behavior, and they confuse that understanding with integration. But recognition is not integration. It never was. If anything, the fact that you can see the pattern so clearly is proof that you're still outside it. Truly integrated material doesn't announce itself. It quietly disappears. The wound that no longer pulls, the trigger that no longer fires, the dynamic you simply stopped walking into. The inside loop mistakes the map for the journey. You can chart every corner of your inner landscape with perfect accuracy, name every aspect, and still never set foot in it. Because real integration isn't intellectual. It's personal in a way that's hard to describe. Closer to acceptance than understanding. Closer to surrender than analysis. And when it actually happens, the thing you were so focused on quietly stops mattering. Not because you solved it. Because you finally stopped treating it as a problem. You lose interest in it. It becomes old news. You might not even remember it was ever an issue. Until someone else brings it up and you think, oh right, that used to bother me. The fourth trap is the one Jung warned about most explicitly. It strikes the most advanced people, the ones who have done genuine work and developed real depth and clarity. Their perception is sharp. Their presence carries weight. And then, almost inevitably, they turn outward. They start using everything they gained to guide, fix, and illuminate the people around them. This is the Martyr Reflex. Not the crude version, not the self-sacrifice for applause, the more sophisticated version. You see what someone cannot see in themselves, and you feel the strong pull to show them. You sense the pattern driving their suffering, and you want to interrupt it. You carry clarity into their confusion because you can, and because it feels meaningful. But there is a difference between offering wisdom and using wisdom to manage other people's process. The martyr trap turns Sophia's clarity into a function. Wisdom becomes a tool for fixing, helping, and intervening. And the subtle cost is this: you stay oriented outward. Your attention remains on the other person's development instead of your own unfolding. The healer identity is the last identity the ego surrenders because it feels the most justified. It feels like service. It feels like love. But if you cannot put the wisdom down, if you cannot watch someone suffering without needing to resolve it, then wisdom is still running you, not the other way around. Why would someone who has come this far still fall into this? Because the Martyr Reflex is the final disguise of the Helen stage. You stop projecting wisdom onto one person. You've stopped projecting it onto a tradition. But now you're projecting it onto the act of helping. The helper role has become the external anchor. And until that anchor releases, the inward collapse that Sophia demands cannot complete. Here is what connects all 4 traps. Each one converts a genuine stage of growth into a permanent identity. The student, the shadow worker, the insight collector, the healer. All 4 are additions. They are things you add to yourself in order to feel like you're progressing. But individuation is not addition, it is subtraction. The Gnostics understood this with a precision that psychology has never matched. They described the journey of the soul as stripping away, a progressive removal of every false layer until only what was always true remains. The demiurge, the false creator in Gnostic cosmology, doesn't attack you with darkness. It attacks you with additions. More knowledge, more practices, more identity, more purpose. Each addition feels like progress. Each addition keeps you in the loop. This is why the transition to Sophia doesn't feel like reaching a summit. It feels like dropping something you've been carrying for a very long time. The seeker doesn't arrive. The seeker finally stops seeking. And what was always there, beneath the seeking, beneath the work, beneath the identity, simply becomes visible. So what does it feel like when the traps finally release? Not dramatic, not cinematic. The transition to Sophia arrives as a quiet stopping. The moment you realize you've read enough, done enough, and understood enough. Not because you completed some invisible checklist, but because the part of you that was driving the seeking has run out of reasons to continue. There is a grief in this. The seeker identity gave your life structure and direction. Letting it go means entering a space where there is no next step, no next book, no next breakthrough. Just you standing on your own ground with a knowing that doesn't require confirmation from any external source. That stillness can feel like loss before it reveals itself as freedom. Jung called this the shift from logos to Sophia, from knowing about to knowing directly. And it cannot be forced, because forcing is the very habit that prevents it. The only thing you can do is notice where you're still adding. Notice where the work has become the identity, and then, for the first time, choose not to pick up the next tool. Completed, not healed. Arrived, not achieved. Uncovered, not built. That is what Sophia demands. And it is the only move the seeker can never make, because it requires you to stop seeking and simply be what was always already there. If this resonated with you, come find me at luminaryflow.com. There's a free gift waiting for you there, and you'll also receive my newsletter with thoughts and inspiration behind each video. You'll find the link in the top comment below.